As the great independent director Mr. Werner Herzog once said, I despise formal restaurants. I find all of that formality to be very base and vile. I would much rather eat potato chips on the sidewalk.
Hello, and welcome to Potato Chips on the Sidewalk. I'm Barbecue Benjamin. Joining me today is...
Jacob, or barbecue,
No.
Chicken Twisties Jacob.
Yes, it is.
This time with actual okay volume. I've recently upgraded to a laptop, but for some reason it has some AI technology that, like, no matter what sound input I put in, it just cuts out voice. So if you listen to our Evil Dead Rise or Barry episodes, then it sounds weird, that's why. But I'm recording on my old Surface laptop, which we have been recording on for about 3 years. 3 years now. Fuck. Jeez. Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Beau is Afraid, directed, written, I think also produced by Ari Aster. Jacob, what's your experience with Ari Aster been over the years?
Look, when I first saw Hereditary, I was like, holy shit, this is like a masterpiece. You know, it was sort of like that peak, like, film student core thing back in the day. But on rewatch, I still think it's really, really good, but didn't quite like it as much. And I liked Midsommar, but I found it was a little overhyped. But, you know, I'd seen The Strangest Thing About the Johnsons, which is a very effective viral short film that he made earlier on in his career, and yeah, it was quite. I've always, like, even though his films aren't necessarily for me nowadays, I've always respected his, like, technical prowess. Like, he's definitely, like, a good formalist. But yeah, before Beau was Afraid, I wasn't you know, I wasn't down on him. I know, like, a lot of, like, for lack of a better term, Twitter contrarians, like, fucking hate that guy. But, like, yeah, I think he's fine. What about you, Ben?
I liked both Midsommar and Hereditary enough when they came out.
Yeah.
I both think they're really solid until the ending.
Yeah.
Like, Hereditary, I'm just kind of like... At the end of it, I'm like, okay, so we just went through a whole bunch of stuff, and it's done.
Yeah.
And then with Midsommar, I really felt the you go girl, good for her crowd were gonna love that, and I was like,
yeah,
okay.
Some of that
Like,
is like a bit. I kind of felt it was a bit of a misreading of the film from, like, a lot of people, but anyway, like, I understand.
Yeah.
There's still the element of that.
See, for me, it's like, I think Midsommar, when it's, like, in full gear, like, for, like, the middle hour and a half of that film, I think it's great. Like, it's funny, it's creepy, it's just, like, I don't know, like, it's very well crafted, but I think either end of that middle hour and a half is just doesn't really know what it's doing as much as the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah, going into Beau was Afraid, I was looking forward to it. And overall, what did you think of Beau is Afraid?
Yes. So my one-line letterbox review was the most expensive student film ever made. Complimentary, mostly. I'd say that's quite apt of how I feel about the film. Like, I think it is by far the Ari Aster film I'm most, I respect the most, honestly. Like, a lot of that is because it is not quite as, you know, like, the thing about Hereditary and Midsommar is they're, like, very well-controlled films, but this one's like, yeah, it's legitimately quite all over the place, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's it sort of fits Ari Aster's nihilistic tendencies the best. I think the going into the more sort of like mean-spirited comedy does really complement him. I do think that said, it does sort of go a bit too... I don't know, his brand of nihilism has sort of been up and down for me. I think it does work in some areas, but in others it's just kind of like, okay, well, what's the whole point of this? But I think for the most part, this is... I really like this. What about you, Ben?
I loved Beau Was Afraid.
Yep.
I think it's his best film.
Mm-hmm.
I think it displays all of his best tendencies, and there's a few, outlying things here and there where I wasn't entirely a massive fan of, just little gags here and there weren't entirely my favorite thing, but overall, I fucking loved it.
Awesome.
I think it is his, it's obviously his blank check film after, the 1-2 punch of Hereditary and Midsommar in 2018 and 2019, probably A24's biggest,
success story.
Immediate turnaround of 1-2 punch of just this director putting out two movies 2 years in a row that were majorly successful for their brand.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what do you want to do? And he was like, I'll tell you what I want to do. And then, the whole initial reaction to this from a lot of prominent Hollywood critics were that this was going to be a career killer for him. And I just don't know how you watch something like this and think that you don't want to see anything this guy has to say about anything ever again. It just shows a disdain for filmmaking, in my opinion, to say that.
Well, the thing is, I don't imagine this will be financially successful, but
oh no, I don't either.
It doesn't need to be. I think look, I hate to talk financial realities, but it does actually to me make sense to have this film, because it's Ari Aster made this distribution company and / occasional production company a fuck ton of money, unbelievable amount of money. So it makes sense for him to have that, loss maker film, because it's also good for their brand, and it's also good for them to probably keep Ari Aster on when he does make another more
crossover hit. Yeah. Well, it's it's what James Gray said a couple, was it last year, about how art house films shouldn't need to make money to be financially viable for studios. As a concept, they should, keep people coming back to the cinema, not necessarily a wide audience, but put out something that, displays a love of the craft.
Yeah, and
people, when the big heavy hitters do come around to make them a lot of money, people are in the mood to go see movies. Keeping the art form healthy is good for stuff these fucking... I can't say these Marvel movies without saying fucking beforehand, but these fucking Marvel movies have lulled people into accepting garbage.
Yeah.
And that's been displayed in their own output. And look at The Mandalorian, stuff like that, where it's just people are just expecting garbage. So when the garbage is put in front of them, they're like, oh, this garbage isn't as bad as the other garbage. It's kind of stuff like Beau Was Afraid is necessary to keep like the mainstream crossover hits at least, you know, like technically on a filmmaking level competent.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was talking about in a very like surgical manner, but like I found this film very affecting. Like it's hilarious. Like it just has like these like screwball, I don't know if screwball's the right word, but like it's got these like absurdist, you know, like comedic sequences that aren't like they're like somewhere between, like I think you know, your friend Riley called it Ari Aster's Freddy Got Fingered.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that level of like just absurdist comedy combined with this like really affecting kind of character study, but like this like there's like this odyssey, like Beau as Odysseus, of like traveling back to his controlling and just horribly like abusive mother. And it's I can't like, I don't want to spoil this for anyone because I don't want to like, say what the gags are, because I fall into the trap a lot of just recapping stuff. But for there's just so much like at like 3 hours long. It just, I felt like it was a marathon of just like all the anxieties and just abuses this guy's gone through just come to a head in the, I think this, a few people we talked to said that like, you know, they felt like it fell apart at the end, but I think it comes to this conclusion where Beau is this self-insert character that when he's like on display in front of this audience at the end, I'm not going to say anything more about what the end is than that. It just feels like Ari Aster was just like, everything I've shown in the last 160 minutes has been how I felt about my work, from like his shorts to Hereditary to Midsommar, and now this final sequence is how I felt putting that up towards an audience. And these people, like, there's like a person defending him and a person like prosecuting him, and the person who's defending him is you know, like not heard, you know, and it's just like he's kind of, I think the final sequence really brought it all home for me. It's just like, and this is, I hate using the same thing over and over again for every person's newest film, but this is by far his most personal, just laying everything out about how his filmmaking has affected him to the screen. It just, on the screen, like he's laid it all out the bare, and like that's how he feels about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, to bring back to the point
Yeah.
about the whole James Gray thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think the best point he made was they should run at a loss for a few years.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, it's about the culture and coming back. And I think, you know, we went to an sort of like opening night celebration in our local cinema, Luna Leaderville, to watch this. And, like, you know, a lot of people really came out to it. And it's like kind of, you know, this isn't so much about the film itself, but it was nice to see so many people come out for
As you
3
said,
hour.
every letterboxd user in Perth.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, but yeah, no. Look, I can kind of see. I'm kind of lying in the middle about the ending. I can understand why the execution wasn't up to snuff for a lot of people, but I feel like, yeah, what you did say is quite right. It's like it is someone laying everything out to bear, which, you know, a lot of the film is very mean-spirited. Some people think it's mocking, which I can kind of get, but I feel like I said to you after the film, you know, when someone sort of like says something self-deprecating and you laugh while you're saying it, even though sometimes what you're saying as self-deprecation actually kind of does hurt. I feel that definitely is sort of what I think the film is doing. And, you know, I think it leans into it a lot, for better or for worse sometimes both ends. But I think, you know, I say it's a student film because it is someone laying out their deepest personal issues, which is obviously a very student filmy thing, out to bear, you know, like in such a big overt way. I think what it sort of, the most powerful thing about the film for me was it kind of actually is towards the end, where it's just like you kind of realize that it is sort of about not just anxiety as a concept to one person, but how parents' anxieties can unfurl onto their children's and affect their ways. And, you know, it's like a lot of the reasons, like, you know, Beau's mother in this film, the way her character sort of like has had that, like, what's the word? Like, a lot of her own insecurities are what she blames on Beau. When it's like, like, and like that's the thing. It's like it doesn't necessarily let Beau off the hook, because there are some things that are just his bad, but there are things. But you do sort of see how this cycle of anxiety and abuse do sort of
feed each
like
other,
handed down like a like, you know, like a family, like a haunted penchant in a way. And I thought that was really, that part actually really spoke to me a lot, you know, the way, you know, your own anxieties about the world manifest through the people who raised you's own anxieties. So I think I really like Joaquin Phoenix when he does his little comedic stuff, like, because he plays it very earnestly, but like he does allow himself a vulnerability that I feel like a few actors can allow themselves to. Like, it's kind of, it reminded me most of his other performances of some sequences in Inherent Vice where the character's stoned out of his mind and just like very vulnerable and open. Like, so yeah, I think it's actually quite a, you know, everyone knows Joaquin Phoenix is a very good actor, so I don't really need to like say too much about his performance, but like, yeah, it's definitely really good here.
Yeah, and I think like pretty much everybody in the cast like plays it exactly the way it needed to be. Like, you can very easily go overboard, and like you can play this in an entirely different way, and I think the casting all around was great. Like Nathan Lane,
he steals the show, in my opinion.
Is one of the funniest performances like I've seen in a comedic thing in a long time. Like his line deliveries of just like trying to be like this cool surrogate father to Beau.
Yeah.
And he's like, "How you doing, my brother?" Like, it's just like everything he said just made me laugh.
And the fact whenever he says my brother or my man is like the fact that it's like it almost seems like post dubbed. Like that's just what makes it so much funnier. Like
like they changed it after the fact.
Yeah. And it's, look, and I think I can tell this film, and you know, for some people we do know it obviously did react quite negatively to them, but like it's I don't know, I think I like Ari Aster leaning into comedy more because I think he understands like it's weird because it's like it's cruel, but I think it also does show a lot of empathy at the same time. Like, I feel like some people will disagree with that, but yeah, I think it actually does come from a very real place of self-loathing, but also being able to look at that self-loathing person and say, it's like, look, some of this is unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like with the supporting cast, like Zoe Lister-Jones and Patti LuPone, who play like the younger and older version of his mum, like their performances were quite like intertwined. I was so impressed with how, like, I wonder what their process was to get that performance so like congruent between the two of them. Like, it was really impressive to me. And I also want to say, Stephen McKinley Henderson, the priest from Lady Bird, and one of the people from Dune. I can't remember what role he played in that, but like, he plays Beau's therapist in this, and like the way he just acts with his face just made me laugh so much throughout it. Like, I'm just really impressed with this entire thing across the board. I also want to bring up another thing that I know had a mixed reaction. There's like this, I don't want to call it like an aside, or like this, like, or like a short film in the middle of the film, but this like kind of like out of, I'm going to say the entire film is kind of 1 foot out of reality, but this is like a 2nd foot out of reality in the reality of the film. And I was engrossed. Is
this the animated sequence?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was done by Cristobal Leon and Joaquin Cachina, who short filmed The Wolf House I mentioned, I think, 2 years ago on my best films list. Yeah, like, I think Ari Aster did produce their last film, but yeah, their work definitely came out strong here. Like, I'm glad to see them in also such a big sort of like mainstream light now. Like,
well, I was saying, I've seen some people say that they were engrossed in that sequence, and then once it ended, they were kind of like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
And to me, it was just kind of like, Beau has been desiring these things his entire life and felt like he was never going to be able to achieve any of those things.
Yeah, he got engrossed in a fantasy. Yeah.
And then it kind of brought it all home for him, where he finally understood why he never even pursued those things. You right back there?
Sorry, Dad. A lot of noise was being made, so I needed to close a lot of doors. So
okay.
Sorry.
But it's all good. But like, it's it was really, I think, like, his character's turning point. And even though, like, that, you can say, like, we've spent like the sequence is maybe 20-30 minutes, and it takes you out of what's happening in that very moment in the film, but it kind of, for me, it's just kind of like what Beau's character has been going through his entire life, and where he's finally made his realization of where he actually wants to go. And this entire thing, like, I can't, obviously there are faults, like I said earlier, like, there's like this animatronic thing that comes up later towards the end of the film, and a few other things here and there that I was kind of like, okay, what's going on here?
Also, not every joke lands as is expected.
Not every joke lands, but by the end of it, when it finally says written and directed by Ari Aster, it just, I was floored. I think it's his best film, and I'm not sure how, like, if this is going to be a rewatch for me anytime soon or ever, but like it's such like a experience, it's a marathon, and I'm like, I'm floored that like he was able to put something like this out.
Yeah.
Anyway, like, anything more to say?
I mean, like, the thing is, it's like, again, I sort of like my movies to be a bit stupid sometimes. Like, I think that, like, there's a lot here, to chew onto, but like, yeah, it seems like there's a weird subsection of people with this film who seem to be like, oh, it's actually stupid, so it's like not good. And there's also people like, no, it's not stupid at all. It's like it can be both. That's all I really wanted to say.
Like,
I think that's
there's nothing wrong with something being stupid.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. Well, it's just like,
yeah.
I don't like to talk about A24 films as their own thing, because like they aren't, but it does remind me of Under the Silver Lake, which A24 famously left for dead.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just like some films are stupid, and that's fine. And it doesn't mean there's that means it's like, I don't know. It's fine if you don't like it, but I don't know. I like films that take themselves seriously, but like they allow themselves to be stupid. Like, I think there is a sincerity in that. Yeah.
And I'd be amiss not to mention it, but I just, like, I know it's like not my place to think about Ari Aster's personal life, but
yeah. Well, look, I'm sure he knows the speculation's coming.
Yeah, but it's just like, considering like, the relationship with parents and siblings in Hereditary and Midsommar, I just like, I know it's not my place to ask, but like, what does his family think of his filmmaking? Like, it's something like The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, like, it's all this very family oriented stuff. Like, it's in not the most flattering things for any of the families portrayed. So it's kind of just to be a fly on the wall during like a family private screening would be such an interesting psychological study.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it's, again, I love this film. Like, I'm very happy that it was allowed to be made.
100%. Yeah, well, I think that's all I really have to say. I'm sure from the sounds of your tune, we're going to hear a lot about it. We're going to hear further thoughts on it later this year.
Oh, yeah. I think it's quite early. Oh, it's already April. Oh my God.
Yeah, gee. Well, that's the thing with like film years. It's like film years are different to like normal years, because it's just like,
yeah,
because like
first 3 months don't really have much.
Yeah, it's usually quite bare this time of the year. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I really have to say.
Nice. I'm very much looking forward to his next one.
Absolutely.
The career is not killed.
Yes, I doubt it is, honestly.
Anyway, thank you for listening to Potato Chips on the Sidewalk. I've been Barbecue Benjamin.
And
that's been Twisted Jacob. You didn't pick up on the cue. It's all good. See ya whenever.
Yep, whenever. All right. Goodbye.